Good morning. It's August 19th, and we're in 1 Corinthians chapter 12 today. And once again, we come to a section that I think is so valuable in Scripture as this analogy talking about the body and the gifts of the Spirit that are given. And there's so much that would be really valuable in this section. It's maybe one of the best passages of Scripture to preach. But one of the things that I love is, again, he's working on this idea of unity. And so he's saying that one thing brings us all together, and that is unity in the Spirit. We are all united by that Spirit. But in spite of that unity, or also in addition to that unity, maybe we could say, there's also a bunch of diversity within the body, and the diversity is what makes us capable of doing so many different things. Verse 4 says there are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. And so he's really bringing that principle together very compactly. It's one Spirit who is giving these many different kinds of gifts. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but in all of them and in every one it is the same God who is at work. So he's actually got a Trinitarian statement there, right? That there's one Lord, there's one Spirit, there's one God. And also in verse 7, it talks about the sovereignty of the Spirit and giving those gifts. It says, now to each one is the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. And so the Spirit is the one who determines who gets which gifts and how they're distributed amongst the body. I've often thought that a local congregation could probably pretty well assess what God has called them to do exactly in their situation by assessing the gifts that He has given to them in that place. So when we look around and when we see what God is doing, what He has brought to us, what resources He has given to us, then we can probably determine what He has called us to do in terms of practical things as well. And so, verse 12, he says, "Just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. For we are all baptized by one Spirit." And so there's again that unity principle that is there. And then verse 15, he says, "Now if the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason stop being part of the body." So this is one angle of understanding this analogy, is that the foot can't look at itself and say, "I'm not valuable to the body," because the body needs the foot just as much as it needs the hand. And the other way around, it's given as well. If verse 16, and if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason stop being part of the body. And then it talks about the importance of each member of that body. And then verse 21, it says, "The eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you." So that's actually flipped it the other direction, is we can't look around at the other parts of the body and say that we don't need them, just as we can't say that we're not important in the body. So both are true. We are needed, and therefore we must participate in the body. And we also ought to value those other parts of the body that are different from us too. Even if we may not understand their function completely or why they're so different from us, it's not up to us to decide those things. They are a part of the body, and God has designed and built and uses the body according to His purposes, not what we might think would be important. So that's, I think, a beautiful part of this analogy.